please.
Genslinger. Osler.
Here.
Larson.
Here.
Bergen. Vox.
Here.
Tirsa.
Here.
Malumbi.
Here.
Allen.
Here.
You have a quorum.
All right, declaration of conflicts. Anybody got any on the proposed agenda? Hearing none, let's move to the agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve as presented?
So moved.
Second. Moved and seconded that the agenda be approved as presented. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none, I assume you're ready to vote. Neil, roll call, please.
Osler.
Yes.
Larson.
Yes.
Vox.
Yes.
Tirsa.
Yes.
Malumbi.
Yes.
5-0.
The minutes of the April 27th, 2020 meeting were provided. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes that you know? Hearing none, I assume we are ready for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve. Tirsa.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Vox. Discussion. Hearing no discussion, I assume you're ready to vote. Neil, roll call, please.
Vox.
Yes.
Tirsa.
Yes.
Malumbi.
Yes.
Osler.
Yes.
Larson.
Yes. The next meeting is tentatively scheduled for, oh, by the way, the motion carried.
Yep.
Next meeting is scheduled for the 26th of May.
Note that's Tuesday because of Memorial Day.
Move to approve.
Second. Moved and seconded that the meeting tentative blanket date be set for 26th of May, 2020 on a Tuesday rather than a Monday. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none, I assume you're ready to vote. Neil, roll call, please.
Tirsa.
Yes.
Malumbi.
Yes.
Larson.
Yes.
Osler.
Yes.
Vox.
Yes.
Motion carries. First item on the agenda is request for conditional use permit. R&M Rentals LLC has applied for conditional use permit to operate a two-family dwelling located at 300 West 10th Avenue, legally described as Lot 12, Block 41, Capital Edition, City of Mitchell. The said real property is zoned R2, single-family residential district, but it does require conditional use for a duplex.
Right. If you could see, there's an aerial on, oh, it's got the aerial on there, but it's also page 10 of your packet. You would see it's right on the corner. From what I was told is the owner is remodeling the house and is going to convert the the basement into a two-family dwelling, but he wanted to get approval of the two-family dwelling first before he does a lot of conversion, so which makes sense. I think it was more from an income perspective.
It looks to me, as I drove by that property in the last couple of weeks, it looks to me like they have jacked it up and put a basement underneath it. I think that was one that had some basement issues last fall, was it not? And it looks like they're doing things. John, have you got anything to talk to us about?
No, the owner came in, got the required permits and works like good. Clean the property up quite a bit.
Any other questions? If not, we are ready for a motion.
I did drive by the property, and I have one concern, and that would be off-street parking, depending on the number of vehicles that are going to be involved there. It didn't appear to be that there was much for off-street parking.
There is a garage in the back, I believe.
Yeah. It is up corner line.
True. Anyway, that was a concern that I had.
Well, as long as they adhere to appropriate parking regulations.
You can come on up. Yeah, the owner is here.
Okay. Please
The
introduce
off-street
yourself
parking
so we
will
can
be-
recognize you.
Yeah, we don't have enough, there won't be a whole lot of lawn left behind there, and there we'll have about 40-45 feet, so we're just gonna gravel that off and make off-street parking in that, because nobody evidently ever uses the garages anyway, so. But there'll be plenty of room for 4 cars, we'll have to get approval from the city to cut the curb out 30-35 feet, but yeah, there'll be off-street parking for at least 4 cars.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
thanks for the information. Is there, now do we hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve, Chairman.
Moved by Larry that the, request be approved. Discussion, or, second, please.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded that the request be approved. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none, I assume you're ready to vote. Let's go roll call again, Neil.
Palombi.
Yes.
Jursa.
Yes.
Fox. Yes. Oxley. Yes. Larson.
Yes.
Okay. Just so that everybody knows, council will hear this Monday night at 6 o'clock in this room.
All right. Next item on the agenda is a conditional use permit. Henry and Patricia Flack have applied for a conditional use permit for construction of a non-contiguous building to be located at Barrington Court, legally described as Lot 12, within Lot 12, Lot 12I, is that, Neil?
Yes.
Okay. A Fiala addition in the east half of the northwest quarter of Section 4-103-60 in the 5th Principal Meridian, Mitchell, City of Mitchell, Davidson County, South Dakota. The said real property is zoned RL, Residential Lake District.
Okay. I'll kind of get some background. I see Mr. Flack is here. Just to get you bearing details, the two agenda items are somewhat related, but first they'll have to be done separately because one's a conditional use and one's a variance, but I'll try not to kind of go through them, background both, so to save some time. On page 12, you would see there's a rendering that shows the proposed elevation. On page 13, you would see a little bit more detail on the size and the door locations and so forth. And on page 14 of the packet, you would see in the proposed where the location is on 12I as well. And then there is an aerial photo on page 18 showing the approximate location of this. So just as a refresh everybody's memory, and this property is zoned RL, so any accessory building on a non-contiguous lot requires a conditional use permit. You may recall that was modified 6-7 years ago. So there's two different issues. One is the conditional use. We'll get to the variance later. But again, we did get some neighborhood feedback. I believe you guys we just got it this morning. We did get some, I believe you guys received some copies of that. So my guess is there'll be some people to speak to it. Again, Mr. Flack is here. That's the background.
Okay. Mr. Flack, why don't you talk to us about what the findings are? We'll give you 3 minutes.
Well, I wanted to build the storage because I got a lot of stuff. Got some property out on Foster Street that I can't take care of anymore. Too much for me. So I wanted to build it out here so we can take care of it a little better.
All right. Any questions for Mr. Flack? Thank you. Anybody else got any comments on this proposal? Does that property butt up against the backside of the rodeo grounds, perhaps? No. What's on? What would be to the? Let's see. West. East of you.
name's Dale Odegaard, and I have the property across from Mr. Flax on Joe Jean Drive. We have 13 lots over there. There's 4 houses that are about $400,000 and up, and I got calls after Mr. Flack had called me and asked me if I was for what he was doing or against, and I really didn't commit that I was against until I started getting calls in regards to the property values of their homes and my lots with this issue coming up. Now, I know when I developed the 13 lots on Joe Jean Court, I had to pay, before I could do anything, about $125,000 in infrastructure, and I see where the lot here that Mr. Flack is putting together has the same type of infrastructure I do. My question is, will there be a road, curb, gutter, and all that in that property when he does this? Or will it not be done the proper way? I'm showing concerns for my tenants across the road. I have covenants over there. They cannot build a metal shed. They have to meet requirements of my covenants plus the city's. And I guess my main concern, I have nothing against Mr. Flack at all, but I don't want to see, and I've heard that this can happen, if one shed goes up there, the next guy might want to build another one, and are you going to be able to say no to that guy if he wants one? And then pretty soon that whole area will be sheds and not residential housing. So that's my concern, and I have nothing against Mr. Flack at all on it. I just think that it's a situation where if something's going to be done correctly, there needs to be a housing development put in, and then build a shed to match the house that's in front of it or in back of it. But at this point, I'm not for the project. Any questions from you?
I have none. Anybody else got some comments?
Neil, Kyle with Public Works, could you go over again why a conditional use permit is
Sure.
needed?
Basically, in the RL district, which is residential lake, which is primarily it is primarily the whole lake and a couple of subdivisions off the lake, it says any accessory building that is not on a contiguous lot. How this kind of materialized was a number of years ago is on North Harmon Drive. That's a good example, because right by the rodeo grounds where there were some buildings across from the road, across from Lake Harmon. That's how this came about. That any building that's not on a contiguous lot requires a conditional use permit. Contiguous to a residence, which in this case is so. But that's why there's a conditional use required.
And that's one of the questions that I had right away is, where is this? I was thinking it was maybe some of those that Neil referred to before that are on North Harmon Drive. Okay.
Right in there, where
Right
you've
in
got
there.
the hand there. Showing.
Okay.
So there's there'd be.
So Neil, you're saying the conditional use permit is needed because you're putting up a shed without a house?
Oh, correct. That's a long way to, that's the easy way to say it. Yep. In the RL district, that's required.
Tell us who you are and make the comments, please.
I'm Phil Becker. I'm a homeowner actually on the adjacent lot to the south of the proposed shed. And I've been instrumental in coordinating the community effort, which produced that document that you got, that everybody was involved with, that signed it, involved with developing it, writing it, and then signing it. So, the main concern is exactly what Dale Odegaard said. We don't want any doors open with respect to what I would call a shed district. And I know it's easy to say that, hey, we're just planning to build one shed on one lot, and we'll never do that, and it's going to stay in the family and all this other stuff. But the reality is whoever buys the lots in the future, they're just one step away with another conditional use permit to build another shed. And the whole idea, as I understood, because I didn't understand contiguous, non-contiguous, what the intent was which is not allowing somebody to come in the middle of a neighborhood and building a shed. I would just, let's take it to the extreme. Let's go to the lake. I own property A, property B's a lot, property C's a house. What would prevent somebody from Texas coming in there owning property B and sticking a big ugly shed between you? Right? I think that's what this rule protects against. It says you got to go to your neighbors and get the approval, and then you got to go to the zoning commission, and you got to go to the council, because as just a generality, we don't want that process in Mitchell, South Dakota. And so when it was explained to me that way, as well as the surrounding property owners, everybody was like, yeah, this is something we need to oppose. We have nothing against Hank Flack at all, nothing. We support him wanting to build the shed. If it had been zoned as a shed district, a different, zoning designation, I mean, there's nothing we can block about it. But this is residential, just like my lot is residential. And so that's the main gist of it. It's just opening that door. So anybody have questions for me about that? And everybody that signed on to that, like I said, we're intimately involved in that process of drafting that document.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? All right, if there are no further comments, let's open the floor to a motion. Do I hear a motion?
This is just the conditional use.
We got another one
Just
here.
the conditional use.
Oh, yep. Marty Barrington, Hank Flack's son-in-law. I just wanted to speak on behalf of it, obviously, for obviously the ordinances that we all got put in place. Obviously, I've been sitting on city council since 2006 and obviously was instrumental on working with the planning commission on putting the redesigns on, the amount of conditional use permits. And I'm sort of going to speak also at the same time on the variances of it. Going on through. But the fact of it, what we have established today as a community, we all know the reason why we have variances, because variances work, and you take a look at them in each individual situation and find out what works for that exactly that particular thing at the time. Going back as the developer of the property, back in my younger days, of course, now that I'm up there in age, but back in my younger days, the whole issue was I bought it actually from my uncle Marvin from Alaska, Florida, or from Alaska is where he lived at. Bought the property years ago along with some of my other sisters, these pieces of property. At the time of the development that we currently see that got brought up by Del Odegaard, we were obviously anticipating to develop it and put housing in there. That was the whole anticipation of it years ago when we put that together and spent several thousands of dollars to get it redesigned and platted. Obviously, things change, as mentioned just a little bit ago by Mr. Beckler, is the fact that it is totally family owned. It still is. The other half of that lot is owned by my sister, Weingartner, and my brother-in-law. Basically going back to the point that it is family owned, and the intention of it is always to be family owned. And it isn't the fact of where the plots are at now, I'll be honest with you, really probably shouldn't even exist that way anymore, because that is not the intention that we were when we bought the property years ago, to the fact that now we want to keep it definitely in the family. Because it's beneficial for the fact of a couple lake properties. My mom lives at Lake Mitchell at 34 North Harmon Drive. My father-in-law lives on Lake Mitchell on 40 North Harmon Drive. And I think we all know it's ideal to have some property in the immediate area to do things that work great for the part that you don't have. Lake lots don't have areas that have storage on them and stuff like that. So to have an additional piece of property in the near location works out ideally for the situation that my father-in-law would like to do. And that's build a storage unit to store exactly that: boats, jet skis, campers, things inside. Basically keeping the neighborhood nice and clean and looking good for the neighbors as much as possible, as well as anything else around the whole entire area. I have talked to a couple other individuals that did sign the petition that was written by Mr. Beckler. And one of my questions was to the individual, so you got concerns on everything that's in it, all the notes. There's 3 or 4 bullet points on it, basically going from the contiguous thing, the height of it, the size of it, signing off. And of course, the answer was no. It was they weren't against all of them. They might have had it in a particular situation that maybe they might be against it, and not necessarily all of them. basically trying to the point is what I asked that person is a compromise. If we can't get to the point where we're at now, what can we all work together in this neighborhood to make it work so we can do what we want to do, and let alone a few other ones that have done it right in the neighborhood. Let's give Mark Bernard, for example. His unit is over 2,600 square feet, and it's made of steel. Obviously, back the days when he built it, he had to get a variance approval at that time. It worked. Neighbors must have went with it because it happened. Been a few years ago, I think 2006, Mr. Gerlach built a large shed. Also, it's 2,400 square feet, which actually this new shed proposed by my father-in-law will be literally maybe 100 feet apart from each other, if even that. And Mr. Gerlach got a variance to go 5 feet from, I think, a 5-foot setback. As in the drawing proposed in front of you, all the setbacks are being satisfied from all different angles. So just going to the point that some of the people that did sign the letter that was put together, they didn't have an issue with all of them. It's more of the fact that they might have had a certain issue on a certain thing, but willing to take a look at what may work. And then the other thing pointing out is the fact that, it's always that saying about what's good for the goose is good for the gander kind of attitude is the fact that there is other areas immediately in where we're looking at proposing to build something is right there in our backyard just as much as everybody else's. And then let alone the contiguous concept, exactly Neil brought up before, has been going on for quite some time. I got pictures over here that I can definitely pass around, but if you want to start from Highway 37 and proceed to the west, I can't tell you the number of them that you're going to find of sheds that are built with steel on them, oversized, non-contiguous to any type of house. And it's all over because that's what works in the lake development area. I think just a few years ago, we just did one with Mr. Temple across the lake on, I think, West Harmon Drive or South Harmon Drive, and a non-contiguous shed, and it works. So I guess I'm looking at the Planning Commission to consider that is singling out the things that have worked in the past and that will work in the future, and hopefully consider a favor to move forward with this proposal to build a shed and storage unit that the family would like to do for it. So. Once again, as I said earlier, nobody can really say what's going to happen in the future. No doubt about it. I said it myself. I designed it to be a development for houses, and that ain't my anticipation anymore. It's about family. Both my daughters live here in Mitchell. They're not going nowhere. Maybe they'll build their house out here someday towards the front of it. The reason why we proposed the building way towards the back is exactly that, to respect the landowners out there. Not propose it up on Fiala where it's very noticeable. Way towards the back part where it's going to be basically unnoticeable. Mr. Beckler will not be able to see this shed at all. I took a picture from the property where the proposal is going to be at, and all I can see is a bunch of trees, and definitely can't see his house. Then, of course, you got Mr. I think it's Wagner's now that bought the Gerlach residence. Took a picture from that angle, and I couldn't even see Cahoy's house, to be honest with you. So I guess the point is what I'm trying to say is that we're trying to be respectful for the neighborhood as much as anything else, also by where we proposed it, where we want to build it, way out towards the back, away from any kind of a road issue of Fiala and North Harmon. And just like I said, trying to be respectful of the neighbors, and we're hoping we can make something work to them because it'll be a good thing for everybody, and to just hopefully get some support.
All right, thank you.
Kyle Croce, Public Works. I just had a question about some other developments we have restrictions on, like you can't have a building permit unless there is water and sewer or roadway. Is there anything like that, John, that you know of, or Neil, on this particular development?
Does it say just a house, or does it say building? I can't remember what the ordinance says. My guess, are you going to have, what kind of access are you going to have to it then, to the driveway? It's already there. But I don't believe you're not putting any utilities in, right?
Correct. Yep, just electricity. We're not going to put no sewer and water in it at this time. I mean, if it's something down the road, we'll do it. At this time, absolutely not. It just it's a cold storage unit is all that we want to do. The proposed road, if those neighbors that live out there, Mr. Gerlach being one, and a few other ones that currently drive across my property to get to the back of their properties to put some things in some areas in the backside of it. What a perfect access, drive across my property, and we have obviously been great for that and very thankful and let people do that. They got a sort of their own designated road, which really isn't the road is what I'm trying to get at. Our anticipation is to obviously start utilizing where the design road is to actually come up and enter into this place. So is in the proper spot, and you sort of get your wills, you know, how you know you kill the grass in that area for most part, but, the alfalfa that does get cut and things like that, but it's more of the designation to come down Barrington Court, yes, to the facility. Right now, people are cutting across 12J to get to the back of their lots, so.
All right, thank you.
And so what's shown
That ordinance,
is
is that
what's
for a
platted?
house? Does that require a house to be approved by the council if you're without a road? Where I don't, is it? Oh. But I think the council has to approve it. Yeah, but I think council can waive that. Yeah,
Yeah.
the council can waive that.
And so that's the way it's platted right now?
Correct.
Those lots?
That is the way it's platted.
And so if the developer didn't want to plat it that way, or
They'd have to come
They'd
back.
have to
you
come
would
back.
come back and replat the entire area?
Yep. Yes.
I'd like to respond to many of the things Mr. Barrington brought up. First of all, I don't think whether I can see it or not is really an issue, because I have trees there, but there's nothing that prevents me, like my next door neighbors, taking those trees down, and now I get to see that. So trees or no trees, that shouldn't be a consideration. Secondly, you know, the whole we're never going to transfer the owner, I made that point before. I'm just telling you, even my personal family, we had a property that none of us were going to transfer, and things changed and we transferred it. And that certainly can happen. Nothing prevents that as this is now. The example of Gerlach and Bernard, it's not a fair example because they were building on contiguous lots. They didn't have to come for approval for that. They had to come for approval because of the size of the shed. So they only got a size variance, not whether they could build or not, because they're on their own lot or they're on the next lot. So if I was to buy that lot from Barrington's, north of my property, that is now a contiguous property to my property, and I could build something there. But that's part of my contiguous property as the law is written. So that's not a good example because those were both contiguous properties. This is not a contiguous property. If the Barrington family wanted to build a house there, none of us would contest that. But since they're not, it opens the door. In terms of the Barrington family and wanting to keep it in the Barrington family and having a shed in the neighborhood, it's like they do have a shed in the neighborhood. There's a small shed right now across the street from Mr. Flack's house and Mike Barrington's house, the original Barrington property. And it's a pretty good sized lot, 100 by 120. And there's a small shed on there now. It's like Weingartners own that now. They own the properties to the north that they showed. I mean, maybe they could strike a deal with their family members and build their shed across the street from their place. That actually would be contiguous, kind of, across the street, and actually would fit with the design that's happening along North Harmon. Most of those sheds along North Harmon are owned by the people across the street on the lake. It's not somebody else from a different neighborhood coming in, building a shed, and not living amongst the neighbors. So.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, you've heard the comments, folks. What are we going to do?
This is just the conditional use.
Yep, this is just a conditional use.
Larry, you still with us?
Yes, I am.
We're looking for a motion.
Well, it looks to me, again, seems like it wasn't long ago, we were looking at kind of a similar instance with the neighbors voicing their concern. And at this point, it looks to me like it's 7-4 opposed. Given that, I'm going to have to side with the neighbors again. And I would recommend that if the neighbors and the Barringtons and all interested parties could get together and maybe work out a compromise, I'd be willing to listen to that in the future as well.
So do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion
To
to deny.
To deny.
recommend.
Recommend denial. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that motion, Jerza.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that, the motion be denied, the request be denied. Is there discussion on the motion?
Mr. Chair, now that we've dug into the details on this particular project, I will abstain due to having relationships on both sides of the issue.
Okay. Thank you for that comment. Is there any other comment from the commission? Hearing no comments from the commission, we are ready for a vote. Neil?
Can I add one more thing?
I'm sorry, when we have a motion, we will close the discussion from outside the commission itself. That's our.
Okay, I didn't know if I had a question or not, just about the denial of it. As Mr. Malumbi voiced before about maybe the neighbors getting together and trying to work out a compromise, if I'm not mistaken, if you recommend a deny, is that the fact that we can't propose anything back for 6 months, I believe,
It's gotta go to
unlike
council
differently.
first.
Okay, yeah, I
Yeah,
understand how that works,
yeah.
just didn't compare to a table is what I'm trying to
Yeah.
get at. Just want to make sure we have the opportunity to hopefully work with the neighborhood, if that's where the rest of the planning commission is at, so.
All right, Neil, let's have a roll call vote, please.
Larson,
Yes.
Fox is abstaining. Osterloo,
I vote yes for the denying of the
Yes for the motion. which is
motion,
sitting
yes.
on.
Jersa,
Yes.
Malumbi.
Yes.
4.
Okay, the motion
Passes.
will go to the council as, denied. And next item on the agenda. A variance.
I guess, since you did that, but I guess it's probably best for the record that vote on it. So that,
Yeah, and I guess the thing that, I would suggest on this variance thing, we need to probably make a motion and do whatever we need to do on the variance, because the council may decide that they want to grant the, conditional use, and so we can't table the variance. We're gonna have to act on the variance, one way or the other there, too, be my guess. So, is there discussion on the variance from floor? Hearing none, we are ready for a motion then.
I'll move to deny the variance.
Do we have a second?
I'll second, Jerza.
Moved and seconded that the variance be denied. Mr. Vox, are you going to abstain on this one as well?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. All right, Neil, we are roll call again.
Fox is abstention.
Yep.
Osterloo,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Malumbi,
Yes.
Jersa.
Yes.
And
Motion carried.
motion carries 4-0, with one abstention.
Yep.
Okay, next item. Plat, a plat of Lot 10, Block 7 of Westwood First Edition, a subdivision of the southwest quarter of Section 16-10360 on the 5th PM, City of Mitchell, Davis County, South Dakota. Anybody got anything to talk to us
Okay.
about on this guy?
I'll give you a little bit of some background here. On page 19, you can see the rendering there, and then on page 22, you would see an aerial. Now, you probably will notice on the aerial, since it's a little dated, a couple of years old, there's already a building on just south of there. You probably can't tell on here because it's an old building, but a while back there is a building on lot 9. You probably want to notice that there's a little bit of there's an easement dedicated, or a drainage easement, where the slash line on the west side, or excuse me, the east side of lot 10. I just wanted to bring that to your attention. A couple of other things I want to bring to your attention. I gave you a copy of the updated master plan. As you know, this area has been kind of made some transformation, and so we have had a couple of different versions of the master plan, but then, you know, as areas have kind of developed. But what I did have is this is probably the most current one with everything pretty well in a format that's very readable and in one page. So I just wanted to bring this to your attention. So as you can kind of see on, if you tip it over with a north arrow facing north, or yeah, tip it over, I guess, you would see where lot 10 is drawn on with that little shaded area where it says stormwater retention. So as you see, that's how it all fits. That larger piece is the coke plant. You can kind of tell where that is. So one other thing we've kind of talked about, obviously, is with drainage. We're going to be, you know, asking for some kind of putting the drainage plan to paper a little bit better, and working with the developer as well as the consultant, and putting just a little bit, compiling the data into a much more usable document. So I'll just leave. Anything else? You know, because we obviously know drainage is an issue out there, and so we're working with the
City
owner.
staff, you got anything to tell us about this?
I believe Neil summed it up well. Our internal conversations was just an updated master plan, because when we come back and look at these, sometimes they don't necessarily match the master plan that we currently have. So we're asking that that be updated. We were provided some updated drainage calcs in the fall of last year, which I believe we were satisfied with. But we would just want verification that the updated master plan of the plat still coincides with those drainage calculations we were given.
Okay. I might also add, you may recall that, I can't remember if it was the last meeting or a meeting before, when we talked about that we're working with FEMA too, because they're also kind of identifying this area. So that's why another reason too to emphasize that you want to make sure that everything is accurate and up to date speed. So
Probably appropriate to get this plat set in stone a little bit, huh?
Yeah.
All right, is there any other comments or questions? Hearing none, we're ready for a motion. Do I hear a motion?
You're good with it?
what was your question? I'm sorry.
I just seeing if he was good with it.
But what about the updated master plan?
Well, that's what you have. It's probably not a bad idea. We could make a note that this was, you know, submitted to you, and that it looks like he's trying to fit it in there. It's pretty well. I mean, obviously things change as the development changes and TIF district requirements and things of that nature come up. I guess if you want to acknowledge that this will correspond with this master plan that's submitted, that might not be a bad idea. That way they're somewhat related. I'm just, I guess you guys have another way to do it, or?
Legal opinion. We mentioned that we need to make sure that the requirements are met according to city staff recommendations.
You're gonna have to catch me up. I wasn't.
I'll try to paraphrase what I said, and I missed there. Back on the plat, you would see that there's an area that's dedicated for the drainage easement. Right, it's part of the stormwater detention. If you got the master plan that the master plan has been updated, and as you can kind of see where it does fit in that area, or at least it's identified it, showing the stormwater retention area on the plat. I guess the bottom line question is, and we are waiting for some additional details in regarding to drainage and to compile a complete drainage plan. We do have some background information, per Joe said, some calculations and so forth. So, but it's just a matter of putting the drainage plan probably in a usable form. Go ahead.
It's my understanding that all we're asking for is an updated master plan of the plat.
And that's what we got.
We have received an update, or we received a drainage report for this area. And then with the updated master plat, we just want verification that the drainage calculations and drainage report they submitted still follows the updated master plat.
Which you have now.
All right, so we're probably good to go on this then, with that caveat noted in our minutes.
Yep.
I'll make a motion to approve it then. John?
I have a question. Does that mean this is not platted until we have the master plat updated and approved through planning? I just don't,
Or do you
can't
want,
follow.
do you want to just approve this too?
Yeah, we just want to approve this too.
Do that? Yeah.
So you approve both?
Approve
Yeah.
them both?
Approve both.
Okay.
Now we're ready for motion.
Well, I got John.
Do we do one at a time here, or just both of them?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Well, if you want to table it, and I can give you an answer in 2 weeks, I cannot give you an answer right now.
Is this time sensitive by any means?
Yeah, what's,
I'm
is
not
there a
aware.
hurry?
John,
John,
is
There's nobody here to address this, and city
You wanna
staff
table it?
needs to have,
Let-
maybe some more, maybe the best way to do it is to table it.
I'll make a motion to table it,
I'll second that.
just to table to next week?
yeah,
Yep,
2 weeks.
because I don't think there's, unless Chuck is hot to trot to sell it, I don't think we need to hurry.
No, if they're just trying to do something to fit it.
Yeah. All right, let's table it then.
I got John. Did I get a second?
Yeah,
Yes.
Doug.
Yeah,
Doug,
got a second. All right, so it's been moved and second that we've tabled this plat for further information, and why don't you guys then work with Chuck on this deal and tell him that we need to, have some solid information, and I would like to see myself this master plan. Let's list the lots and stuff on it a little more
Okay.
fully
Get it all cut and sewn.
too. Because
Get
it's
it
tough to compare this to a specific lot.
Okay. We could do some more labeling.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second, that's the table. Neil, we gotta go roll call again.
Jerson.
Yes.
Malumbi.
Yes.
Larson.
Yes.
Osterloo. Yes. Fox.
Yes.
Okay.
Motion carries, and we are now on to a plat of Lot A subdivision of previously platted Lot S of Maui Farm, Second Edition, City of Mitchell. This one's a little bit easier.
Yeah, this one you can kind of see. Pretty
Because
much.
we have a much better idea what's going on there, and this is following his master plan, and he's been good at it.
This one is, yeah.
Well, now this looks like a place for storage area.
Yeah.
And he's got a
I mean,
nice
well,
layout on
you're only
there.
a few, beats away, so.
Yeah. And this one he's been marching right along with it, so.
Yep.
We're ready for motion.
I'll move to approve that.
A second, Okay. Moved and seconded that the plat be approved as presented for Lot A. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none, I assume you're ready to vote. All in favor, say aye.
All right.
Oh, we got
No,
a
roll
roll
call.
call. I'm sorry.
Okay. Fox.
Yes.
Osterloo. Yes. Malumbi.
Yes.
Jursa.
Yes.
Larson.
Yes. All right, number 13 item, plat of lots 1, 2, and 3 of Copel Brothers First Edition to the city of Mitchell, South Dakota, lot 1 in lot 1 in the northeast quarter of section 27, 10360.
Okay, on page 27, you would see a copy of the plat, and then the surveyors were kind enough to kind of overlay the area with a photo. That's on page 29. You can kind of see what originally they were thinking when they drew this, they were going to just do 2 lots, but now since they platted it, it's going to be in the 3 lots. Now, they forgot when the plat that they submitted to me, you got a revised one. The only difference that's on the revised one is you could see a little bit of a hash mark on lot 2, and that's to encompass that main access easement. And you can kind of see it, well, now and that you can't see it very well, but there's the road that kind of cuts through there, doesn't necessarily line up. It's kind of a diagonal road. So that's just to maintain the access easement that's already there. Other than that, they're exactly the same. And from what I understand is what they're going to do is they want to sell the parks as a separate unit and then sell the other parcels as a separate unit. So it's all separate.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, we are ready for a motion.
Move to approve.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second, Jursa.
Moved and seconded that the plat, lots 1, 2, and 3 of Copel Brothers First Edition to the city of Mitchell be approved. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none, I assume you're ready to vote. Neil?
Larson.
Yes.
Oshlu.
Yes.
Fox.
Yes.
Jursa.
Yes.
Malumbi.
Yes.
5-0.
Motion carried. Oh, now I gotta find my agenda again. There it is. Trying to find the plat so we got everything going here. All right, next item. Is there any other business to come before this body at this time? Hearing none, we are ready for public input. If you need to address the City Planning Commission on an item that was not on the agenda, excluding personnel items, please come forward to the podium, state your name and your concern. Presentations are limited to 3 minutes. Items will be considered, but no action will be taken at this time. And I see no one coming to the podium, so this meeting is adjourned.
See you, Larry.
Bye, Larry.